Thank you so much, Kyle and Arif and everyone for joining us here on our modified Wallkill River Summit. So the Wallkill River Watershed Alliance asked me to present on getting to know your watershed and what information is out there. And particularly now, while we're able to access online resources and we're social distancing, what kind of information is out there so that we can get to know our neighborhood watershed a little bit better. So I'm going to give a brief introduction and talk specifically about 3 different web-based mapping tools: the Hudson Valley Natural Resource Mapper, the DEC Info Locator, and the Environmental Resource Mapper, what information is on each of these, what they're best used for, at least for a watershed context, and how you might be able to use some of this information. Okay, so most of you are familiar with the Hudson River Watershed Alliance. We're a regional nonprofit that works to unite and empower communities to protect their local water resources. And we do that through education, training, and networking. And while we're not able to do that in person right now, we've moved to platforms like Zoom. And I wanted to give a shout out to the Wallkill River Watershed Alliance for continuing to hold their annual summit, the 6th annual Wallkill River Summit, even now. We know that clean water is so important. We know that access to the Wallkill River is so important, and they're doing so much work to make sure that you all have this information. The Hudson River Watershed Alliance is able to support them in putting this online summit together through our work in partnership with the Hudson River Estuary Program and NEIWPCC. So we wanted to give a shout out to our sponsors for that reason as well. So I'm going to take you through a case study about the Platica Creek. The Platica is a tributary of the Wallkill River that flows through town of Platica, town of Gardner, and town of New Paltz. It's a little over 25 miles long, and it has this very iconic view from the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail that probably many of you recognize. And my thought was, a lot of people are out and taking walks, and maybe you're curious about the Platica Creek. So I learned a lot about it as I was putting this together, so I will take you through that. And if this is your home watershed, please let me know in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to go through some web-based tools. So the first one is the Hudson Valley Natural Resource Mapper, which is maintained by the Hudson River Estuary Program at the DEC. And Ingrid Heckel is on the webinar tonight. Thank you, Ingrid, for all your work getting this up and running and keeping it so accessible with such great information. So I have a lot of links in here. I can send this presentation out afterwards, and you'll have, the webinar will be posted as well, but feel free to click on those links and check out these tools. So the first information that I'll show are watersheds and municipal boundaries. So of course, a watershed is the land area that flows to a particular body of water, and it's based on topography. And the watershed delineations in the Hudson Valley Natural Resource Mapper is based on the U.S. Geological Survey Hydrologic Unit Code, or HUC. And HUCs have, the higher the number, the smaller the area. And so the HUC 12 is the smallest available. And these sizes are basically, they've tried to break all of these hydrologic unit codes into similarly sized areas. If you need smaller watershed delineations, you can use a great tool called StreamStats, which allows you to delineate a watershed from a point. So you can pick a particular point and it'll trace the watershed boundary for you. So here's the Hudson River Estuary Watershed. And if we turn on the HUC 8, which is a pretty big size, we see that the Wallkill River and the Rondout Creek together form one HUC 8. If we keep zooming in, we turn the HUC 10s on. This is about the size of an average Hudson River tributary watershed. We've got the Moodna Creek here, we've got the Quasaic Creek here, Fishkill Creek here, but of course the Wallkill is quite large, so it's broken up into several different HUC 10s. This is the Shawngum Kill here, and here's the lower Wallkill watershed. There it is. We'll keep zooming in. This is the Kleinkill-Wallkill River. So it's called the Kleinkill-Wallkill River because it includes the Kleinkill, even though it's not limited to the Kleinkill's watershed. Okay. So then we can also turn on the municipal boundaries, and I use this feature all the time because we know that watersheds cross municipal boundaries, and this can be a really easy way to see that we have here, this is the Platica Creek flows through here. I didn't turn on the streams layer, but it's coming. And you can see it flows through the town of Platica, town of Gardner, and also the town of New Paltz before it hits the Wallkill. Super useful under reference layers are the municipal boundaries. So a couple more key layers on this map: the water body inventory and priority water bodies list, stream classification, and biomonitoring, which all relate to water quality and stream health. So the water body inventory and priority water bodies list is DEC's inventory of water resources statewide. It breaks up water bodies into specific segments and has fact sheets with a summary of water quality based on DEC monitoring for each of those segments. If a water body is not meeting water quality standards for the best use based on stream classification, it may be listed as impaired, and that link has much more information on water quality standards if you want to learn more. So you can go onto the Lower Hudson River Water Body Inventory Priority Water Bodies List webpage, go to the Lower Wallkill River PDF. It's circled for you. This is straight from the PDF, and each segment has a fact sheet. So, but you might not know which segment the Platica Creek is. So we can go to the Natural Resource Mapper and turn on the Priority Water Bodies list. Here's the Platica Creek here, and we can see that it is no known impact is the assessment. So it's its own segment. There's no known impact, which means it's a healthy stream. And it still does have a fact sheet. That's how I learned that it's 25.5 miles long. But that's not as interesting as, say, the Wallkill River at Lower Main Stem, which on the mapper shows that it needs verification. And so this is the segment of the Wallkill into which the Platica Creek flows. So if we pull up that priority water bodies list fact sheet, we can see how long the segment is, what the classification is, the fact that it's impaired, and some information about what it's been tested for and the things that might be causing that impairment. This is a really helpful piece of information, some really great background on our rivers and streams. Stream classification, I'm gonna go through this very quickly, but water bodies are classified as A, B, C, or D based on their best use, whether that's drinking water, swimming, or fishing. A Class A stream is not necessarily higher quality than a Class C stream, but a Class A stream would be for drinking water, where a Class C stream would have a best use of fishing. We still want them to be high quality. And a standard of T or TS would indicate trout or trout spawning. So here on the Platica Creek, we have DEC stream classification turned on. We see that it's a darker purple because it is a trout stream. If we click on the lower segment, we see that it's a Class B stream, so it should be suitable for swimming, and it has a standard of BT, so it's a trout stream. Some other important information from the Natural Resource Mapper: riparian areas, floodplains, wetlands and forests, dams, and assessed road streams crossings. We have to zoom in a little bit to get this layer to turn on, but these are the riparian buffer areas that were mapped by the New York Natural Heritage Program. This is another great resource to understand the riparian areas, which are based on the land adjacent to the stream that have the most direct influence on the water quality in that stream. And we see that in some places here where there's a lot of wetlands, those areas are wide, and in other places where the stream is a little bit more confined and maybe steeper, it's a little bit more narrow. So this is a great tool for looking at where riparian buffer protection is especially important, and also where restoration projects can take place. We have FEMA floodplains on here. We've got state-regulated freshwater wetlands, lots of wetlands in the headwaters, and DEC dams along with assessed road stream crossings. So if we pick a road stream crossing, how about that one? That looks good. It's in the town of Platica, and this is a severe barrier. And we can go to the NAC, the North American Aquatic Connectivity Project website, and learn more about this particular barrier with some photos and some details why this is a severe barrier for fish to swim upstream. So thanks to Megan Lung for these great pictures and for collecting all this information that's now very accessible. I wanted to quickly go through the DEC Info Locator, and this tool I have found to be particularly useful for water infrastructure, in particular SPEEDIES permits and MS4 areas. So SPEEDIES is the State Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, which regulates discharges to water and groundwater. And these can be municipal, industrial, or private commercial institutional, but most often we think about wastewater treatment plants, like here is the Village of New Paltz wastewater treatment plant that's right along the Wallkill River. MS4 is the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, which is a type of SPEEDIES permit for stormwater. And urbanized areas that are defined by the US Census are required to implement stormwater management programs. So the MS4 is really dealing with stormwater infrastructure. So here's the DEC Info Locator. I've turned on the rivers and streams. This is the DEC Regional Office in New Paltz. I don't think you can turn that off, but that's great. Here are the wastewater facilities, and we can click on the Village of New Paltz wastewater treatment facility and go directly to its permit. So this also has really important information about permitted discharges from municipal and other wastewater discharges. And then here is the MS4 area. So you can see that parts of the Platica Creek are considered an MS4 area. Other key information on the DEC Info Locator include water withdrawals and those permits, potential environmental justice areas, and climate smart communities, which that information can be helpful for grant programs. And if you've ever struggled through the PDF maps that predated this mapper, this is such an easy to use and helpful tool. I'm thinking specifically about those MS4 and potential EJ maps. I also wanted to mention the Environmental Resource Mapper. This is an older tool, but still very useful. This shows state or federally protected resources, along with resources of conservation concern. And this is really important if you need to get a permit, or if you want to understand if you might need a permit for specific work. So that's a whirlwind tour of 3 different online mappers. And I wanted to mention a couple of other sources of information that might be useful as you're learning about your watershed. So the Wallkill River Watershed Alliance on their website has a reference library with a wealth of information. And I think this is one of the really important roles that watershed groups play, is compiling all this information so that it's easy to access for people from the public. The Wallkill River Watershed Conservation and Management Plan was written in 2007. So it's over 10 years old, but still includes some really important information. Riverkeeper, of course, has their data on bacteria and Enterococcus monitoring to indicate potential fecal contamination and sewage. And municipal plans are also a really important source of information: natural resource inventories, open space plans, and so on. This is a map I pulled from the Town of Gardeners website. I understand that they're working on a natural resource inventory project right now. And because our friend the Platica Creek is a trout water, you see it's highlighted purple here. So even though the stream crosses municipal boundaries, it's mapped here on this natural resource inventory in a really clear and easy to understand way. So how might you use this information? I think these mappers are a really great way to get to know your watershed better and really understand the context. So understanding the HUCs, these watershed delineations, where smaller streams like the Platica fit into the larger context of the Wallkill River watershed. There are 70 tributaries that RF mentioned, so we can start to scale down and get to know our backyard stream, our neighborhood stream, our municipal stream a little bit better. And I think there's also a great opportunity to understand what you see on the ground and how it fits into what's understood and mapped. So you might see things that don't reflect the current conditions that are mapped, or vice versa. Having this information at your fingertips can also help inform water quality monitoring. So particularly streams that are no known impact or unassessed on the priority water bodies list are really well suited for WAVE, which is DEC's Water Assessments by Volunteer Evaluators program, a citizen science program. And my understanding is that WAVE is doing online trainings and moving forward even with COVID-19. And I actually went to check, and WAVE has been done in the Platica Creek, so that's been taken advantage of. All of this information can also be really helpful as a foundation for a watershed characterization. A watershed characterization is the first step to create a watershed management plan, which is very well described in the New York State Department of State's Watershed Planning Guidebook. So many of the data layers, the maps, the information that you would need to collect for a watershed characterization are already at your fingertips through these online mapping tools. So there's an opportunity to make some headway and really get to know your watershed. There also might be opportunities to identify actions using this information, opportunities to protect or restore resources like riparian buffers, wetlands, or small streams. And I wanted to give a shout out to the Monhegan Brook Watershed Conservation and Management Plan. This was completed last year by Orange County Water Authority and Orange County Soil and Water Conservation District. And this is an example of a watershed management plan for a tributary to the Wallkill River. So certainly you can do a large scale Wallkill River watershed plan or a smaller scale tributary management plan. So to wrap up, I know I've gone through this really quickly, but I wanted to have plenty of time for questions. There is a wealth of information that's available out there online, and there's also lots of guidance on how to use these tools. So I wanted to give a broad brush stroke of what information is out there and how you might use it, how I use these tools. But if you're looking for more details on how to really use each of these tools, that information is also out there. And I think this time is also a really great opportunity to connect with your neighborhood watershed and really get to know the streams in your community. So that's it from me.